So I don't think they're gonna do a 4K Switch because it's gonna be too expensive for pe developers to make the game and too expensive for consumers to buy it, especially for their kids. So I don't see a 4K Switch happening, especially with the Switch OLED having 64 gigabytes of internal storage. They would need the Switch 2 to have a minimum 500 gigabytes internal storage, which Nintendo's not gonna do.
I mean,
But
yeah.
I mean, if I'm wrong, sure, I'll be wrong, but I just don't see it happening, especially for games like Mario Kart and Super Mario, etc.
I mean, it's an incentive for them so they can, continue to push forward and kind of continue with their past innovations because like their handheld experience was always something unique and different that they brought besides consoles. Obviously the unique design of the GameCube was awesome. The Wii U was a failure. The Wii was super popular. It was at one point one of the leading consoles out there. And the Switch has been a success overall, but it's just like now it's kind of dated. It's a very dated system, piece of hardware. I think it's complete mistake if they ever decide not to go, if they decided to not to go 4K. I think it's a complete mistake. And I know you know that. I know Chris knows that, but like, there's just no way. Like, I feel like it's a bad business decision. I mean, also, yeah, they don't really care about viewing experience, which is another, argument on your point. But I guess for my point too is like, what goes for is like you can at least buy affordable expandable storage where some of these consoles are asking for like $200 for
Hmm.
expandable storage, and it's not even a terabyte for some of the times. At least with like the micro SD, if they still have that, and I hope they do, like it's super affordable to get a micro SD card for expandable storage, and you just don't know. Like it's possible like that these games will only be in 4K digital, like I said, and I think it's possible. So like it's kind of like a happy in between. You'll get it. It's just gonna have to be digital. And honestly, in the digital era, like I think people are more fond of getting a digital deal over paying for physical media because let's face it, convenience sells, and people don't want to store anything, even if it's a small cartridge. And maybe for all
Right.
they care, they said, fuck it, let's just do small CD-ROMs. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what the future holds for this new announcement for Switch 2.
Because also, if they do it for, if they say, oh, digital purchases will be 4K, but physical games wouldn't, that would also be an issue that is going to steer people away because you're going to have those people who don't know one over the other of performance. And then you're going to have the situation of, well, if they don't have an external micro SD that they bought, they can't play this digital game in 4K because they don't have the card. I think Nintendo's main focus is just getting the games to as many of their players as possible. And I think what they're going to focus on rather than making the games 4K is having the Switch with more built-in RAM so that developers can make better games because the Switch has 4 gigs of RAM currently. And Capcom was like one of the few developers who said, "Hey, we can make better games for Switch if you make a console with more RAM." And they're like, "No, that's okay. Just make it on the 4 gigabytes of RAM, call it a day." So I could see them doing that, focusing on the RAM for those games to run better, as opposed to, hey, we're gonna make games that are in 4K, and each game's gonna have a large storage space. Because even if they do 4K physical games, it's gonna cost Nintendo more money to manufacture their own cards to hold them, and it's gonna cost third party developers even more money to put the games on there to have it downloaded on the side as well. So I think it's gonna be a negative if Nintendo tries to do a 4K console that is gonna also have the price that is attached to making a 4K console. Um, because you know they're not gonna charge 500 for the Switch, and if they say, "Oh, we have 500 for the Switch and it's not 4K," we'll just buy PS5 digital for 400 or on sale for 350,
Mhm.
and you get 4K.
Well,
Um,
if they do afford, let's say they do, how much would it be? Not 500 to be more, or you're saying they can't charge 500 because it's too low, or is it too much?
if it's a 4K,
Yeah.
I would say. They can justify 500, I feel, if it's 4K, if it has enough internal storage to support the games that need the space, and if it has an OLED screen. I've seen a lot of videos speculating it may not have the OLED screen at launch because of the other features it's going to include, and those extra features might steer people away of let's say they charge 400, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, they're gonna do 400 for the Switch and it's 4K. Then you got to decide, okay, do I want to pay 400 and play Mario or Zelda or Smash Bros, or do I want to buy a PlayStation and play God of War, Spider-Man, Gran Turismo, etc. So that will come to a conversation of, if it's the same price, whether it's 400 or 500 and it's 4K, you got to decide, do I want to play the Nintendo exclusives or the PlayStation exclusives? But I think if they charge 400 or more, people might be swayed into going, PlayStation or Xbox route just because those games are typically bigger and much more, beautiful, better to look
Yeah,
at
sure.
visuals. But I think when they're adding all these different features that are speculated, like the mouse function and the magnetic Joy-Con attachments, um, I think that with that they would, and not doing an OLED, they're probably justifying a 350 to 375 price tag, I would say, for that.
Hmm.
Because even if you think about it this way, the Steam Deck, I think the original model you can get it for five something, and then the Steam Deck OLED is like 600 or something. But Steam Deck is built as a handheld console that can be docked to an external monitor, whereas the Switch is a hybrid console from the beginning. So they have to make sure that everything runs in both, as well as making the games develop for them, and they are, what I'm saying? Like, it's designed for both play styles from the beginning, whereas Steam Deck is, hey, we made this as just a handheld, but you have the option to dock it with the docking station that you have to buy separately.
Chris, any
Does that make
thoughts?
sense?
Yeah,
I think it'll be 4K. I think that I would push back on the idea that they won't, only because 4K is already old and Nintendo's usually behind the times, and the original Switch on when it's docked runs at 1080. So I
alleged.
don't see why they would launch another 1080 system when it's docked. I can't say that it'll be 4K 60 FPS, but that barely happens now, and we're working on,
8K.
PS5 and Xbox, whatever they're up to now. Um, and I think Anthony, you might be underestimating the Nintendo name value. Like
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really know how many people are deciding between a Nintendo Switch and a PlayStation. Like I think if because you buy Nintendo systems for the exclusives, you buy them because you want to play Mario Kart, you want to play Smash Bros. So the idea of getting a PlayStation wouldn't even like what's the point? Because you're not gonna be able to play those games on PlayStation. So I think that like I mean I feel like they'll probably charge $400, but I think it'll be 4K at least docked because
At least.
yeah, and I think also it's like you got to think like the Switch has been around for 7 years now, and so like if that's their life cycle of their consoles or their systems, why would they launch one and go another into 2032 with a system that runs docked games at 1080? I think who knows what the like handheld specs will be. But I would imagine that they probably redesigned the dock that the Switch is going to be in so that it could like maybe it upscales to 4K. Not like it might not be like a 100% pure grade A cut 4K image, but I think it'll at least be upscaled. And it'll probably be 4K 30 FPS, just like we played on like PlayStation 4 Pro and all that.
Or at most 2K-ish,
But
right?
also like Nintendo fans, you're not buying a Switch because you care about graphics. Like you're just
Right.
not. So maybe that's something that Nintendo wanted to address. Maybe they took the comments from Capcom very seriously and they want to, put out a system that's a little more up to date. I think, it just because it has the same name as as the first Nintendo Switch, it's like let's not think that they didn't change anything. I think there's a good chance that this is a vastly upgraded version of the Switch, and maybe it's going to surprise a lot of people, being much more powerful than they're expecting it to be. Um, but it's also, maybe it's maybe it's an opportunity for Nintendo to show that they can do it, that they can put out a system that runs really high image games, and that maybe they want to get rid of the notion of like, oh, does the Arkham trilogy run well on Switch? Like maybe they want to get rid of that. Maybe they're tired of people, seeing third-party releases and going, ah, well, it's on Switch, it's gonna suck. It would be in their best interest to not have that reputation. So I could see why they'd be motivated to put out a system that runs those games a lot smoother and they all look a lot better. So I would honestly be surprised if it doesn't run at 4K. That would surprise me.
I mean, I
Mm.
feel like if it runs at 4K and it's around the 400 price tag or less, they're all, if that is a possibility, they're gonna just destroy the competitor with Steam Deck and ROG Ally because those are like 600 plus and they don't even run 4K docked or handheld is like whatever 800p. So if they can do 4K docked and then 1080p handheld and not charge $600, then great. You dominated the handheld competition and you're doing something for those Nintendo fans who want the games to run better and look better. I gotta see it to believe it with Nintendo because I forgot what the term was from Nintendo exactly, but there's a term that they have that kind of means the translation is basically using outdated technology in current time or just to paraphrase it. So that's
Hmm.
why their console's always been behind, always had weaker or outdated technology. And that's they focus on all the games and everything. Um but I also want to see what they're gonna price in consideration of their other features with the controllers. What are the new features? What's the new button that they're using? What's the second USB-C port on the top for? Um, so many questions, and we have what, 3 months or just about 3 months till we find out everything. So, I mean, I'm ready to be proven wrong by Nintendo. If they say, hey, it's 4K, great. 4K dock, 30 frames, that I'll live with it. I'll deal with it, whatever. Um, and if it's like, oh, we're gonna run 1080p 60 for docked and it's gonna be smooth 60 or locked 60, then it's like, okay, it's a slight improvement, but not enough to I think would justify that purchase price tag if it's not 4K. But
Right.
we'll see
Right.
in time. But I mean, with the hardware and stuff, kind of went deep on the hardware. Any more stuff about hardware before we continue that you guys want to talk about?
How do you guys like the look of it?
It's kind of bland, in my opinion.
Mm,
Needs more color. I like the color it had when at launch. Even if
yeah,
it
the
was just
neon
technically gray,
Joy-Cons.
I got the gray one, but I decked it out, and I'm sure maybe they're taking that into account that they realize that people like to deck out their Switches, put skins on them. They're also Nintendo's notorious of shutting down any third parties that allow for like designing on their consoles and shit. Um, but maybe they'll like have a deal where like you can buy like a cover or case or something unique to make it look less bland. Because hey, I love black, I love me some black, but like there's barely any color in that thing.
Plus,
Hmm.
with the first Switch, there was a ass load of accessories from the past like 7 years. So they're gonna have so many accessories like cases and Joy-Cons
You're the accessory
um
king for that shit, man.
and they
And
have
your
cases
phone.
for your games and so I mean I like the design of it because it's so simplistic and I never was a fan of the neon Joy-Con colors of this. I never was a fan of the two, the red and blue Switch. I always preferred like the one that's just that one color through and through. Or if both Joy-Cons were the same color and the Switch was like a different color. Um like I have a red Switch with two black Joy-Cons, like black ones that I customized with the shells that I bought and replaced them. Um so I like the design of the new one. Don't know how I feel about that USB-C port on the top or that I mean, aside from that, they have I guess mostly the same. There's the two buttons in the back to detach the magnetic Joy-Cons. So my concern is me being clumsy, I might press the button to detach it by accident.
Hmm.
Hopefully they make it to where you really have to look for it to press it. Like you won't do it accidentally. You only do it when you meant to do it. And hopefully that's the case. If not, we're gonna see some broken switches and stuff if that isn't like a hard thing to like do.
Mm.
But we got some game stuff to talk about too, about Nintendo Switch 2.
Do we?
Yeah, a little bit. Mario Kart.
Oh
And that's it.
yeah. Mario Kart 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, 24 players, I think.
So
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's kind of
24,
crazy.
and it's like online, right? Not just 24 CPUs, like
Yeah.
24 players online. So there's these videos about the character model for Donkey Kong in that game, and I think maybe Bowser. Like, oh, it looks terrible or looks off and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, it's 24 players and they've had some minor improvements to the roster for the DLC that came out with 8. Maybe they're including like classic Donkey Kong, classic Bowser, 8-bit Mario. Those would be cool characters to have in the game.
Mm,
Or maybe because it's just a teaser trailer and the image of Donkey Kong is so far in the back that when you zoom in, Donkey Kong might look ugly because YouTube does, the compression. But
yeah.
Mario Kart, I want to start with on the software because it's the only thing that we saw very briefly. But they did show a really long track at the start line. And so there's discussions on, are we going to see much bigger tracks? Are we going to see a semi open world mode where you get to drive around this little map to do different missions? I believe some game previously did it. I forgot which Mario Kart I heard about did it, but or something similar. If they do 24 player with the 24 player mode, they're gonna have to increase that roster size too, which I don't know what
Mm,
characters haven't made it to the roster with the exception of non-Mario characters, which is at that point it's Smash Kart Bros something. Because Link is in Mario Kart. There's an Animal Crossing character I think in Mario Kart and Donkey Kong and I forgot who else. Oh, the Splatoon characters are in Mario Kart. So at this point, just put Samus in the game, put Star Fox, I guess. Um, but I want to know what they're gonna do with those games that are gonna be backwards compatible. That, will they have an update to run better, like the Arkham games, which I think Arkham Knight's the only one that runs horribly on the Switch. But
mm,
um, like a game like Tears of the Kingdom has really great draw distance, but visually, although you have that art style, and we talked about it today in the chat, the art style is one thing, but the visuals is another thing. Witcher 3 looks pretty crappy on Switch, but it runs. Trying to see what else that I have, what I have now that looks funny on Switch. I guess Scarlet and Violet, are they gonna do something
mm.
with that? Um, So, and what about other launch titles? Do you think they're gonna do will a new Zelda game launch or will it be a couple years out?
Oh, at least a couple of years, at
Because
Yeah.
I
least.
know they said the first two each had 5 years to work on, and I believe there was an interview with the director who said they did pretty much everything they needed to do with those two games and the story in Hyrule. And this is something that I want is don't do the third game in Hyrule with the same map as the first two. You can go to another land and have a
Mm,
whole new map. Um, just like Mario Wonder had the new kingdom, the Flower Kingdom, but you still had some enemies that would repeat from the previous games. It's like you could just do a whole new thing. It's you got to evolve the games, right? Evolve to keep things interesting. I'd like to see a third Zelda that's in a different map and not that top-down style. 'Cause I didn't like the top-down games. I tried Link's Awakening. I didn't like it.
mm.
Which is I'm in the minority. All the Zelda fans love it because they've been playing Zelda since day one. My first Zelda game was a 3DS game, Ocarina of Time,
Mm.
and I didn't even finish that one. So,
I'm really
um,
interested to see. I mean, admittedly, I only play Pokemon on my Switch. I cannot pretend to care about the new Zelda, the new Mario Kart. I'm not gonna buy those games. I don't care. I feel like Pokemon's in an interesting spot because they got, rightfully so, really obliterated when Scarlet and Violet launched, and they didn't run very well, and I don't know. I thought they looked fine, but I'm also the Pokemon millennial that like played the games in black and white. So like in black and white, not playing black and white. Like when the fucking games were in black and white.
Right.
And so when I
And didn't
see,
move. No sprites.
yeah, so when I see current Pokemon, I'm like, if you showed me this when I was 5, I would have been like, oh my God, I can't believe that's what it looks like now. But I think it'll be interesting to see like because I would be surprised if the next Pokemon game is not a cross-gen title that just looks better on the Switch too. Just because, I mean, the regular Switch has like what 100 gazillion people bought like own the current one. That's a lot of people to just leave in the dark on the new game. But I'm curious to see how Pokemon takes advantage of the Switch because I don't I'm sure you guys maybe have not been paying attention to this, but when they've been doing these recent special events in Scarlet and Violet, they've been putting out these like very uniquely animated like mini trailers for those events. And they just had one with Flamigo, like a shiny Flamigo outbreak. And like people are looking at those little animations and being like, this looks not like anything else we've seen them do, but it also looks kind of like what they would want the next games to look like if they had a system powerful enough to make them look like that. And so I'm just curious to see like, do they take advantage of it or do they kind of just make a regular Switch game that just has a higher resolution and maybe runs more? Because a lot of people's complaints with the last Pokemon games seem to be their performance. And I guess if you eliminate that, maybe they think that's enough, and we just run it back in Gen 10 and ZA, and everything runs in 4K, and everyone's happy. So I'm really only curious about what the next Pokemon game is going to look like. And I don't know, maybe if they do another Smash Bros. Or something like that. But
They say
yeah, in terms of new
Smash Bros.
games.
Like Legacy is was a working title.
They'll probably port do like the Smash Bros. Deluxe like they did with the Wii U games for the Switch since Sakurai wants to just leave Smash for like, at least for a while now and go into another thing. But I'm concerned about cross-gen games because how much would it hold back the Switch 2 games from reaching their potential, or even if they do it for Pokemon, how much more of an improvement would it be on Switch 2 compared to Switch 1? Because we know Pokemon does this thing where they try something out in one game and then they utilize it in a bigger aspect in the next game. Um, but I'm worried about the cross-gen being a long-term 2 or 3 year thing, and those games that could have ran even better were held back by the cross-gen situation. Because even Breath of the Wild was initially a Wii U game, and then they said, "Oh, we'll just port it onto the Switch and release it the same day of, the
Crazy.
release date." Um,
I heard there's
so
people thinking that that's what they're gonna do with the Switch 2 instead of having launch titles, is
Mhm.
just like port over certain games that people um would probably buy again. Like I don't know if there's some way to do it with Pokemon because they already released the version with all the DLC. But I could definitely see like I don't know, some Zelda Breath of whatever complete edition with both games and they both run at 4K and like I could see them doing something like that. Or like Smash with all the DLC, something like that. Where it's not it gets them out of needing to rush potentially a new game, but also gives people a way to check out the new Switch with a game that they like and it's one that has all the content in it. So I could see that being their launch strategy.
And then my issue with that, and just a personal, you know, thoughts on what I hate about that with Nintendo is you buy like a PS4 game for your PS5 or you buy an Xbox One game for your series, it most likely will have that upgrade for the, current gen. Whereas Nintendo is going to be, hey, we're going to just resell it to you and charge more because the Wii U games were like 50 and then they got ported to Switch for 60. They're going to charge 70 for the Switch 2 games because Tears of the Kingdom was 70, Mortal Kombat 1 on Switch was 70, and the other ones have been 60, but that could be them testing the waters and say, hey, we're going to
Oh,
charge you
for
70
sure.
now.
No, for
Um,
sure.
and I hate the whole idea of, oh, we're gonna just port this over again to the new console and make you pay more. Whereas Xbox says you can buy either whatever, the game as is, and whichever console you're on, you will get that version of the game downloaded automatically. PlayStation, I hate how they do it. If you buy a PS4 game and you upgrade to PS5, it saves both versions of the game, PS4 and PS5. And if you delete the PS4 version and put the disc back, it re-downloads it again. Don't know if it's been changed with an update since then, but that's what I hate about PlayStation's strategy for upgrading your games to the next gen. Xbox has a better option for that, but Nintendo charging you again for the game that you already have. But here's my thing about the that strategy. Since the games are backwards compatible, I would hope that they would just say, "Hey, we gave Smash Bros. An update to run a bit better. We gave Tears of the Kingdom an update to run a bit better. Mario Kart doesn't get one because we're making a new Mario Kart at launch. Just buy the new one."
That's the
But
only game I could see being a launch title. Um, but otherwise, it's hard to imagine that they have Although Nintendo, like, they announce stuff and then release it the next day. So there's a chance on April 2nd, they're like, oh, also Mario, what is it, Galaxy 3 or something, like, or Mario Odyssey 2. Like, there's a chance they just out of nowhere drop a brand new game. But
And they
I
gotta
could see
up
Mario
that
Kart.
online connectivity for their online games. If Mario Kart's gonna be 24 players, their online has to be much better. And I'm hoping it is.
You know what that
Um,
means? Price is
oh,
going up.
higher price of
Yep,
Switch Online.
yep. $20 a year? I don't think so. I don't
Oh.
think so.
And
Let's
then
do it. Charge me
here's the other
$80 a
thing.
year for something nobody uses besides access to some games, damn it.
Another thing is they say that the Switch 2 might have a built-in microphone that you can use. And for me, it's like, well, if you're gonna use a microphone for online games, wouldn't you just use a headset anyway? But if the controller has
Mm,
a microphone as well, because I know the 3DS had some features where you could speak to the microphone for the game to do something, or Mario Kart, the balloon battle, you can blow into the microphone and it'll give you more balloons. But they're just
come
gimmicks,
on,
that's the other
man.
thing. This
If
is
you
a
blow into
Nintendo
the
episode,
microphone, it'll
guys.
tell you how much
It's a
alcohol you've drank.
It's a Nintendo episode,
You're under
guys. Okay,
arrest.
keep it child friendly, guys. It's a
No.
Nintendo episode.
I just want to butt in, but this, whatever microphone on the controller thing, PlayStation did that with the PS5 controllers. They have done nothing with the technology. Like it's one of those, like sometimes companies add these features and so they can throw it in the presentation and it sounds good. And then in practice, you're like, wait, what? Like you just said, why would anyone ever use this if you have a headset? And the answer is
Yeah.
they don't use it if they don't
And
have the headset.
it's
It's a
because
terrible
like
microphone.
they want the developers to put the work to get use out of them, and they're probably just like, it's just too much work. Just
No, that's
we're on the
like when
time crunch.
what was it, PS3 with the six axis controls? Oh
Oh,
my
I hated
God.
that thing.
Stop forcing that shit.
Because even like not every PS5 game utilizes the what they call that the triggers
The triggers, the
the adaptive
touchpad.
triggers, like other games do, and they leave it for the developer to, make it. But I think when the first party Nintendo games will try to utilize whatever functions they have. But I'm curious about that
Yeah.
mouse function that is rumored. Like, what are you gonna do with a mouse function besides like Splatoon and maybe Mario Maker? People want a mouse for Mario Maker, or you play a point and click, or like one of those games like Diablo or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things of how many people are going to get use out of it, how many games are going to use it. And one other point I wanted to make too with the Switch 2 is, are they going to continue Amiibo? Because they haven't really been doing that in the past couple of years, and they haven't been making new Amiibos really. And Amiibo
Mm,
is just an old gimmick from the Wii U and 3DS.
I
So
feel like you know the answer to that, man. Like
yeah.
that shit
I
is
mean, it's
It's
dead.
over,
Nintendo,
buddy.
so it's Nintendo. They could just say, "Oh, we made Amiibos for this new game. We're bringing it back." I mean, you never know.
Look how quickly they, I mean, yeah, you're right. They've been holding on to that because I'm sure they sell and they see like some eBay prices going on with like some of these amiibos or exclusives, but like look how quickly they gave up on the Wii U. Uh yeah, sure different kind of things there going on, but like it's over,
I
buddy.
I
I
still
think
find it bizarre that people didn't know the Wii U was separate from the Wii, because if you had any brain cells to look it up, it's different size, different color, had a gamepad, and that's like saying, "Oh, we have a Nintendo DS, and now we're making a 3DS that's the same thing as the DS, but it's just 3D." No, it's a whole new console. So I just don't understand how people didn't know the Wii U was a whole new system. Even the game cases were different color and size. Like it didn't make any sense to me that people didn't know it was different.
yeah,
But
Mm,
I could see Amiibo. I mean, I'm not happy about some of the prices I paid for Amiibos, but
let's
I could
see.
see it not going any further. But I can also see Nintendo saying, "Oh, we have Amiibo support for this game, and you can get these items here." And it's like just don't.
mm. But what about the Switch 2 exclusive amiibo? So you can't even use them on the regular Switch anymore.
Mm.
Because I'm very skeptical about the amount of backwards compatibility this console is going to have.
I
Uh,
think the main games that won't be supported is like the Labo games.
mm.
And I'm trying to find out what other games could justify not being back, or what they would try to justify not being backwards compatible. Like, oh, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is not backwards compatible because we want you to buy the new one. Um,
That is some shit
uh,
they would do. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that is some shit they would do.
we
Yeah,
got
it's
less than
going
a
to be
minute left.
interesting.
So,
Well, I think one of the last things is like just general curiosity. I'm curious how third-party games run on this thing because that's been an issue for Nintendo for a very long time. And I know people usually buy the Switch for exclusives, but I'm curious to see if the Switch can kind of dip its toes into like, hey, you don't need to buy a PS5 because we run all the same games pretty damn well. So like you buy a Switch and you also get to play all these other exclusives.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
kind of
curious to see how that goes.
that's kind of the thing where it goes into our Switch can support these games now, but the developers have to go put the work in to make the updates to let it run on our
Mm.
console. And if they do, great. But we'll see, right?
Yeah, we'll see. But that's all the time we have for now. Beautiful people. Three Amigos Podcast. Back at it. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you next
See
year, guys.
you next year.